Hello, everybody. Long time no chat. I've been dying to get on here because I have a couple of interesting things lined up, but I've just felt exhausted and I've had so much to do. And I don't know if it's this unusually cold weather we've been having for April, May. But anyway, enough of that. By the way, guys, I really do recommend Library as a platform for watching videos. I am on there. I'll tell you why it's great. You go to library.com, you download it, don't worry about Odyssey, download the library.com app. You can put it on your phone, your laptop, your PC. Takes up hardly any memory. I find it incredibly simple to use. It's really neat and clean, not too fussy. Yeah, and what's more is you earn cryptocurrency by watching. I've already gained sort of 90 library what do you call them, tokens, library tokens, which equates to $12 by watching. Library is on, I'm sure it's on Bittrex, it's definitely on CoinEx exchange, so you can exchange it. So, you know, if there are people you enjoy, I quite enjoy Dollar Vigilante on there, and also the Crow House, Tim Pool. I mean, there are quite a lot of different people on there. It's quite a good platform. You could watch me on there, and then of course I earn a lot more than YouTube from you watching. And also I can retweet videos I like to recommend to you guys, which I think is quite nice as well. So instead of me linking to things, I can just directly retweet. It comes up in my feed and you see what I'm watching as well. So guys, the big news, we've got Bill Gates's chart here because, you know, the major news is his breakup. Now, I don't know, when I did Bill Gates's chart, you can have a look back. I think it was around January, February time anyway. I talked about it. I missed like something really obvious. As you can see there, his descendant is in Capricorn, and it's at 26 degrees of Capricorn, exactly where Pluto has been hovering around and very close to where one of the Pluto-Jupiter conjunctions happened last year. So Pluto on the descendant is a classic case of Splitsville and divorce. So, you know, whether it's a business partnership he's got with Melinda or an actual marriage, I mean, we're not really sure at that level. It could be anything, couldn't it? It's over. But, you know, I know people in the media, in the alternate media, were saying it's just a way of liquidating the stock like Bezos did with his wife, you know, kind of things like that. I feel there's something more to it. Intuitively, I think, remember what I said a couple of weeks ago? We're going to see lots of sex scandals with politicians and that. Well, we're seeing this with Gates. I think they've decided it's time they want him sidelined, burned. The people who control Gates would be maybe the Russell Illuminati family, the Rockefellers, whoever it kind of is, and who they've had him as their front man. They've decided he's incredibly unpopular. He's really bad PR. Every time he's in the media, he's putting his foot in it, talking about death panels, saying really appropriate things, saying things like, oh, in the next pandemic, that'll really wake them up, kind of thing. Oh, that'll get them to take notice. Sitting there next to Melinda when she's saying, oh, there's no way he's thinking about a chip under the skin, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't even exist. I'd know about it. I'm like, hello, honey. You may not know about it, you say, but everyone else does who's awake. We know he's got the patent for it. We know. And incidentally, guys, I've got a video I'm going to link to that was actually on band.video. Alex Jones covered it. They found a video of Klaus Schwab on French TV speaking in French, but it's got subtitles, and he is exactly saying that they are going to introduce a biometric chip. He says to embed in your clothes, like, yeah, right. You're not going to embed it in your clothes. You change your clothes every day, right? It's going to be embedded in your skin. He admits that that's the end goal, but I don't think they're going to go via the embedding it in the clothes, if you ask me. So he's talking about the chip keeping track of everything, you know, your passport, your driver's license, bank accounts, tax returns, all your medical history. Of course, it's going to serve as your vaccine passport and your whole everything, your biometric. So he's talking about it on French TV. They're not keeping it hidden, but the mainstream media, of course, want to keep certain people asleep. So I definitely think that the people that control Gates have decided that he's a liability at this stage. Also, I kind of suspect from looking at his chart before that there might be some of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's issue going on there that's making him more unpredictable in his interviews. I think he's rather got addicted to being on TV all the time. So they are going to sort of push him aside, but it's rather awkward because he's so involved with her, Bill and Melinda foundation. She understands how it all works. They kind of want to keep her on. Of course, she's a woman, and they like to push women as if women can't do anything bad. She wears her little pink cardigan. Reminds me a bit of like when Kate McCann used to go on TV, and now, yes, she's doing that same thing to try and feminize herself, so she's got the softer look and that kind of thing. So I think they want to bring her in to take over. But what's really interesting, he's not the only person they're pushing to the side. What about Fauci? First, we had the congressman from Texas grilling him hard in the congressional, here they call it a select committee. I can't remember. Congressional hearing, is that what they call it in the US? Sorry if I got that wrong. Now, it's not only seeping into the mainstream, it's becoming in the mainstream quite heavily now about his links to the Wuhan lab. The old story about the gain of function research that Fauci was doing as head of the NIAID, and he was getting funding from Gates. Then Obama wanted to stop that because he said it was too dangerous, so they simply moved it over to Wuhan, and they continued to do it there. And of course, there is this narrative that this coronavirus is a bioweapon that came from the Wuhan lab. Now, look, I'm not 100% convinced of that theory. I feel it's a little bit of a limited hangout, right? So it's something easy for people at a conspiracy level down here to latch on to, but it saves, saves more, what would you call it? It kind of decomplicates things. It's something that a lot of people will accept as a halfway house without going the full way to the conspiracy. I think they maybe want to, there's gangrene in this whole operation. They want to cut it off. They're going to cut it off by getting rid of Gates and Fauci, and then they think the rot won't go any further up. So that's definitely what I think they are going to do. I don't know if they're going to get rid of Shwaub yet. Maybe they'll move on to him. But the kind of rumblings that are going on, and I think in Texas, they also putting Fauci under the microscope, mentioning this Wuhan lab. They're steering everyone in that direction, right? So could also be a diversion because of the resistance to that. So they may be hyping it up in order to create a huge distraction and to maybe lead the public to believe that there's going to be some confrontation with China because of this. But it's not really the Chinese problem, is it? In fact, China is just a manifestation of the globalists' wet dreams. It was both Kissinger's of Big New Brzezinski, Bush Sr., who was very high up, skull and bones man. He's very high up in the committee of 300, as is Kissinger. They were all over there incubating China, supporting Mao, getting rid of the Four Old, structuring that whole sort of communist, partly communist, capitalist, monopolistic fascist society of totalitarianism, social score, in order to roll it out to the West. So it's not really a case of China bad. It's just a case of the Chinese Communist Party working in tandem with the globalists in order to incubate a system that they would roll out over the whole world. I think they tried that with the Bolsheviks. Didn't go quite right with Stalin because he didn't always play ball. And I think there's a struggle at the top now. I was looking back to, I said the Committee of 300 goes back to the time of Italy, when the Genoa and Venice were the kind of trading powerhouses, and there was a family called the Guelphs, more than a family, a kind of a group, extended family group, the Guelphs, who were in league with the Pope, and then they were kind of up against another group. But both those groups were the controlling groups of the time. Our royal family comes out of these Guelphs, and But just back then, like also with the War of the Roses, just like then, there was a kind of conflict between two groups in the Committee of 300. I think that conflict is going on today as well. The Guelphs were against the Holy Roman Empire. They were supporting the Pope, and I think there has been that kind of conflict going on within the committee. And now they brought China in, China getting more powerful, wanting to have more control. I believe that they are thinking of having a military base in Israel, for a naval base, the Chinese in Israel, to have access to the Mediterranean, a naval base in the Caribbean, a naval base in Melbourne. Danny Andrews in Melbourne is signed on fully to the Belt and Road, as I believe have the government in Ireland, in Iceland, I think in Scotland. That's why Nicola Sturgeon's so bold. I have an article actually to even show that many of the universities in this country are heavily involved in taking funding from China, through the Confucius Institute, which is embedded in many universities. So America has a number of enemies. There are enemies in their own government. Their allies, the UK and Israel, are also enemies because they are also sort of passing on secrets and intellectual property to China. So it's a tangled web. So, but I do think that what's great is we've got a massive awakening going on, far bigger than anything they ever bargained for. It's rattled them. I think the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing rattled them. They moved too quickly on the whole scenario, Event 201 and all that jazz. And now it's coming off the rails. And, I don't think they can control it. It's got a little bit out of control. They're rattled and they need to do damage limitation, hence why they're having to do possibly just push Gates and Fauci aside now. I was going to say apparently that, oh yes, another important thing of how they're shunting Gates aside, there was an article in the Daily Beast, which is not really, it's a globalist kind of publication, right? Globalist thinking. So they're not exactly what we would call on our side, the freedom-loving, anti-globalist, anti-whatever, fascist side. And they ran an article about the number of times Gates had been to Jeffrey Epstein's pad in Upper East Side of Manhattan, etc. We know the story he was having with a Swedish model and her daughter. Yeah, we know that. But they also go on to talk about how many key people who were employees of Gates at a top level went on to work for Epstein and vice versa. Key people that were working with Epstein went to work for Gates, and that's what it mentions a lot in this article. So here we have almost a globalist publication also alerting people who weren't yet logged on to it about the close connections to Epstein and Gates, thereby contaminating Gates and creating the narrative of Melinda, she just couldn't stand Epstein, she's really angry, that's what's causing the divorce. But it's a lot more than that. I believe at Jeffrey Epstein's New Mexico ranch, they were doing a lot of cloning, and all the rich and famous were getting cloned. I think it's kind of more to that. I'd like to come to it another time, because there was an interesting book by Robert Ludlum, I think. It was the last book he wrote before he suspiciously died in a fire. And I think he kind of logged on to what was going on in that New Mexico ranch back in 2001. And he wrote about it in the course of this thriller. And so I don't think it's cloning as such, but we know that both, Epstein had a massive interest in gene therapy, cloning, that kind of thing, and so did Gates. And I think their interest in Prince Andrew was because he had close links through being, what do they call, patron of all these universities, right? They had very close links to Harvard as well. They were funding Harvard. Apparently Gates was funding Harvard via Epstein. Why would he need to do that? Then there was the question of why Gates was going on so many flights on a piece of junk 70s trash can that was Epstein's plane, when Gates had a plush, luxurious, much safer, more modern plane. Why would he even risk his life going on that heap of junk, as someone called it, of Epstein's, which, if you've seen it inside, is like, oh my God, if that isn't the epitome of highly dated 70s decor nothingers. I mean, he could have at least had it refurbished. It's like screaming the worst of the 70s in there. Didn't look that clean. Then you wouldn't expect that, would you? The cleanliness was not, part of the bargain on the journey. Yeah, so I just wanted to share those. Hold on. I don't know if there was anything else. Yeah, I think that's basically it. I'm going to record something for library tonight, and I'll put a link in, so I hope you guys will go over and look there. I hope this wasn't too radical for YouTube. You know what sensitive little bunnies they are over there. I hope you're all well. Hope you enjoyed that. But yeah, wasn't that interesting there? Pluto on the descendant of Bill Gates's chart, and getting a little breakup going on. Look, he has got Jupiter-Pluto conjunction by birth, so it was undoubtedly the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction was going to affect him. So I think we'll leave that there, and take care, everybody.